Federal Conservative leader Andrew Scheer faced and survived his first test as Tory leader. To talk more about it, joining me now via Skype from Ottawa is our parliamentary reporter Ray Filion. Ray, does Scheer have the support of most of his MPs?
It seems that way. Nobody rose, I'm told, in caucus to ask for Mr. Scheer's resignation. It didn't happen on Wednesday. They met for quite a bit of time. The caucus meeting, the first post-mortem that the Conservatives had to do following the election, was scheduled to last 4 hours. It lasted 7 hours because a lot of people wanted to speak about what, in their view, went wrong during the campaign for Andrew Scheer and his Conservatives. A lot of people had to vent, although I'm told it was done very respectfully. The big win for Andrew Scheer is that his caucus refused to give itself power to kick the leader out. That was a possibility. They rejected that option. So that means Andrew Scheer is still going to be their leader up until the convention, which is going to take place next April. That's going to be the big test for Mr. Scheer. So he won a battle on Wednesday with his caucus. It was very important. But now the real battle begins, and he's on a campaign to try and save his leadership. It's far from certain whether or not he's going to be able to stay on as leader, because the people who seem to me are especially angry in the party are not the MPs and the senators. They're the rank and file Conservative operators who worked hard during the campaign to try and put the Conservatives over the top, but it didn't work. They were very disappointed with the campaign that Mr. Scheer led. There's a lot of anger within the rank and file Conservative membership. So his big test is coming up in April. Now, the other thing that Mr. Scheer announced at the conclusion of the meeting is that John Baird, a former Conservative cabinet minister, will be conducting a full analysis of everything that went right and everything that went wrong for the Conservatives during the campaign. He's already at work, by the way. He started meeting with some MPs to see what they think of the campaign. So yeah, he won a battle, Andrew Scheer, but the fight for his political survival as leader of the Conservative Party is not over.
You know, it's funny. You and I have interviewed John Baird quite a few times in the past, especially when he was Foreign Affairs Minister, and he has a lot of respect on the Hill and a lot of respect with the federal Conservatives. Now, the new leader of the Senate Conservatives blames the mainstream media for the Tories' election loss. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, we're talking here about Senator Don Platt of Manitoba, who was elected on Tuesday night as the new leader of the Conservatives in the Senate. And Senator Platt told the media after his election win that he thinks that the media played some kind of a role in the Tory defeat on October 21st. He says journalists were tougher with Andrew Scheer than they were with Justin Trudeau. Maybe. I got to say, I'm biased. I'm a reporter. I covered the campaign. I don't think we were tougher on Mr. Scheer than we were on Justin Trudeau. I just think that the difference perhaps was the way Mr. Scheer dealt with the controversies that he had to face during the campaign. Justin Trudeau, for example, when the blackface controversy erupted early in the campaign, he spent 2.5 days just apologizing, answering questions about it. And he looked like he was speaking from the heart. Andrew Scheer, on the other hand, when he had to deal with questions on abortion, same-sex marriage, and other controversial issues, the allegation that the Conservative Party hired a firm to dig up dirt and trying to annihilate Maxime Bernier's party, he would repeat the same answers all the time. So when you do that, when you're not honest about something, or you don't look like you're being honest, the same questions keep coming back. And at the end of the day, it takes a toll on your reputation, on your image. So I think it's not necessarily the media, but how Mr. Scheer handled controversies during the campaign compared to the Liberal leader. I think that was probably what made the difference.
Now, Ray, a story we recently featured on BCN was Elizabeth May stepping down as Green Party leader. Ray, isn't that a bit of a slap in the face to those people who voted for her so soon after the federal election?
Yeah, just a couple of weeks after Canadians voted, she announced she's no longer leader of the party. And it came as a bit of a surprise because Elizabeth May told us she was going to hold a news conference on Monday on Parliament Hill to unveil her new caucus, which is now made up of 3 MPs, including herself. And towards the end of her announcement, she said, by the way, I'm no longer the leader. It's a responsibility she has decided to hand to Joanne Roberts, a defeated candidate from Halifax. She's the new interim leader. The Greens are going to be picking their new leader next year in October 2020. Yeah, a bit of a surprise, although it was rumored that she would no longer want to have that job anymore. She says, yeah, she faced some criticism during the campaign, but she says her resignation has nothing to do with that. She said she simply promised her daughter that 2019 would be her last election as leader. And she's been around for a while. She became leader of the Green Party of Canada back in 2006, so 13 years ago. She was the longest serving leader on Parliament Hill. But she's going to stick around. She's staying on as an MP. She intends to run in the next federal election as a candidate. And at that point, after the next election, if she manages to hold on to her seat in Victoria, British Columbia, she says she might take a run for the presidency. She might want to try and to become Speaker of the House of Commons. So yeah, it's a page of history that's being turned here.
The Liberals, meanwhile, held their first post-election caucus meeting recently. Ray, they can't be happy with their leader either. The election results, they went from a majority to a minority. Will there be a review of Justin Trudeau's leadership?
No, there won't be one. I think most Liberals are happy with Mr. Trudeau in spite of them losing 20 seats on October 21st. I think his job is safe. But they did have a lot of things to talk about, obviously going from a majority government to a minority government. The game is not going to be the same from now on for the Liberals. They're going to have to make compromise with other parties if they want to pass their bills in the House of Commons. We still don't know, by the way, when Justin Trudeau is going to call the House back to work. You'll recall that in 2015, he called the House roughly a month and a half after the election. This time around, he's taking his time to form his cabinet. That's going to happen on November 20th. And we still don't know if the House is going to be called to sit for a few days before Christmas. We're hearing rumors that he might have to wait, that he might wait to recall the House until the new year. We're apparently going to find out when he'll call the House back to work next week after he gets to sit down with the opposition leaders here in the nation's capital.
A new group of senators was created this week. Will Alberta and Saskatchewan have a voice?
Yes, they will. As a matter of fact, this new group, which is called the Canadian Senators Group, their goal, they say, is to give more of a voice to the different regions of the country. They're saying that the Senate was created at its origin to give a voice to the regions. That has sort of gone, it has changed over the years, they say. So 11 members are going to be forming that group, including 2 former Conservative senators, Scott Tanis and Vernon White, a former police chief here in the nation's capital. So they feel that the regions of the country, including the West, the prairies, but also some regions outside of the big cities in Ontario and Quebec, don't have much of a voice in the upper chambers. So they've decided to form that group to apparently try to remediate that.
It was great to see that China lifted its ban of Canadian pork and beef, but what's the latest when it comes to our canola and our peas? Ray, producers want to know.
Yeah, exactly. Those things are still there, unfortunately. Just like Meng Wanzhou, the 2 Michaels, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, who are still being detained in China. But it was still big news this week, a big step forward. China, as you'll recall, banned Canadian pork and beef back in June because they said they had discovered some sort of an additive in a shipment coming from Canada. Canada has always maintained that that was false, that it was a misunderstanding. It took more than 4 months to solve that issue, which was very welcome news to farmers across Canada because China is the second largest export market for Canadian producers. It represents roughly $1 billion per year. So major news, but all is still not well between Ottawa and Beijing. A lot of irritants are still there, unfortunately.
Yeah, we have to lift the ban, like I said, on our canola, peas. That's very important, especially here in southern Alberta. Ray, there appears to be positive momentum to get the new USMCA deal ratified in the United States. Tell me more about that.
That's what Justin Trudeau said earlier this week as he was welcoming the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Richard Neal. He was here in Ottawa. to talk about the new NAFTA, the USMCA, which is still has not been ratified almost a year after the deal was signed. You'll recall the way it works is you negotiate a deal, you sign it, and then every single country, in this case Canada, the United States, and Mexico, have to ratify it. Mexico so far is the only country that has ratified it. Canada has not ratified it because they're waiting on the Americans to do it. And the whole legislation is being held up right now in the US Congress by the Democrats, who have concerns over some provisions that have to do with labor and the environment, drug prices as well. Although Nancy Pelosi recently said that there could be a window before the end of the year, but it's looking more and more likely that it's not going to be before 2020 until the US Congress ratifies the deal, if they do.
Ray, there are some reports that online abuse of female MPs appears to be on the rise. Let's talk more about that.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, you and I talked about Environment Minister Catherine McKenna, who had a big slur painted on her campaign office here in Ottawa. It sounds like things are getting very nasty in Canadian politics. The CBC reporting this week that NDP MP Jenny Kwan had a panic button installed in her constituency office in Vancouver. Elizabeth May says she received death threats. Liberal cabinet minister in Quebec, Mélanie Joly, says she keeps her Quebec constituency office locked because there have been some threats. So yeah, things are getting nasty. I'm wondering if it could have something to do with the vitriol that you find online. You know, things have changed in recent years with those social media like Twitter, Facebook, and a lot of people are posting nasty things. So Liberal Whip Mark Holland this week said countering this sort of online vitriol is a priority for him and a committee of MPs. They're offering support for members of Parliament and their staff when threats are made, for example, although many here on Parliament Hill say more needs to be done. It's becoming a bigger and bigger issue.
Being a federal politician definitely has its challenges, and we wonder why we pay them so much sometimes, right? All of that abuse. Now, Ray, some good news from Ottawa in that Liberal Cabinet Minister Dominic LeBlanc has been released from hospital. He underwent a stem cell transplant as he was battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yeah, he actually spent a big chunk of the election campaign in hospital. He couldn't campaign on the ground in his riding back in New Brunswick. He was actually in Montreal in a hospital to undergo that stem cell transplant. So good news this week. He's out of the hospital. He's home in New Brunswick. This is going to be welcome news for Justin Trudeau. He's a great friend of Justin Trudeau, a personal friend of his, and the Prime Minister hopes to be able to keep him in his cabinet. We don't know if he's going to be good enough to be a cabinet minister again when the Prime Minister unveils his new cabinet on November 20th, but it's certainly good to hear that Dominic LeBlanc, a nice guy, is doing better and that he's out of the hospital.
Yeah, we wish him all the best with his recovery. Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Filion, joining me once again via Skype from Ottawa. Thanks so much, Ray.
You're welcome, Hal.